It's good to see some familiar faces in the building. It's good to be home. How y'all doing? For real, how y'all doing? How's the morning sessions been going? Y'all hungry? I'm gonna ask y'all to hold off for just a little bit. I'm excited to get into this topic. My career, for the majority of my career, has been collabs, as well as my personal life. Growing up is what I camped out for. When I went to Saucony is where I ended up gravitating to. When I went to Yeezy, same thing. Nike, same thing. And when I left, it's been about 4.5 years now since I've been an independent creative or entrepreneurial creative. I've been, negotiating my own deals and putting those things together. And so the insights that you're gonna see today are based on that experience, based on those viewpoints. The other thing that I will say is that these are my truths, right? These are through the lens of which I see it. You might see it differently, and that is the point when it comes to collaboration. It is a conversation. It is not one person's viewpoint, right? And so I want y'all to be encouraged in that thought process. The other thing is that I'm not going to be talking at you. I'm going to be requesting that you are part of this conversation with me. So there's actually going to be 2 microphones that are going to be around, because at a couple of these different sections, I'm going to ask you for your input. I want to know what you are thinking. I want to know how you think about collabs as well. The other thought that I had before I wanted to go into this next thing is, for those of you all that know me, I'm a very transparent and direct communicator. When it comes to this space, it comes from a place of what I'm seeing in the marketplace. It's not coming from a place of just my personal opinion. So I want to make sure we understand the distinction of that. What I'm thinking about is, as the kid that was camping out when I was 16, I care very much about this. To me, it's not just commerce. It's not just corporations. This is where I met some of my best friends. This is where I met some of y'all. I got to meet people that I really admire through being able to do this work. Collaborations are only an aspect of the footwear industry, but make no doubt about it, a lot of jobs are connected to collaborations. And so when you see me speak so passionately about it, it's because that's what I'm thinking about. So let's get into it. One of the things I wanted to start off talking about was one of the biggest, most anticipated collaborations, maybe over the last 4 or 5 years. And that collaboration happened to be Fear God, Jerry Lorenzo, and Adidas. And the question I was asking myself about this collaboration when I started to think about all the time that had gone by was, what's happening with that partnership? And I don't know if y'all remember, but at the time of which it was announced, this definitely was the most anticipated collaboration since Yeezy Adidas. And I think the thing that really started to stick out in a lot of our brains was that it happened in a similar manner. Jerry had went from Nike to Adidas, Kanye went from Nike to Adidas, and it really started to spark kind of this excitement around folks in the industry to see, okay, well, what's gonna happen now that he's in this new space? When I was looking at the marketplace at that time, we're talking about COVID. I know nobody wants to talk about COVID. We had to deal with the mask and being inside. But from a business standpoint, a lot of the corporations were challenged in that space. Adidas in particular was challenged. There was a lot of different business losses that were happening. They were under scrutiny for keeping stores open. But at the end of the day, they needed a win, right? And so the bet was that Jerry was gonna be the win that was needed at that time. Now, what came with that was some premature announcements at that time, of which we technically would not do when we're doing collaborations. And what I mean by that is, this conversation was just forming. And that's why a lot of consumers were so frustrated about the time, because typically you would never announce a collaboration that early, because we all know it takes like 18 months sometimes to even get something to the marketplace. And so when you announce it so early, you're kind of creating problems for yourself, because the consumer's like, okay, well, when? Well, when's this gonna happen? And that started to become a foundational issue when it came to this partnership. The other unique thing that was interesting about this was Jerry was announced as the creative director of Adidas Global Basketball. He also announced that he would do Fear God Athletics, on top of him managing Fear God Luxury and Fear God Essentials. Now, I think Jerry is incredible. The only reason I say these things is because that is a massive undertaking, right? We're talking about global businesses, multiple categories, multiple distinctions, teams, etc. The thing that makes this incredibly more challenging is that he was tasked with coming up with a commercial performance basketball sneaker that could perform on court, that could also be worn casually. When was the last time that happened? Anybody know? Jordans. It's been a very long time. So it is something that requires an insane amount of focus, is only the point that I'm trying to make. As this continued on, as we got into 2021, there was some early alignment when it came to communication about the collaboration and when it came to the partners showing up together. And so we would see Jerry sharing updates about working with the team in Portland. We would see updates on Instagram. We would see them working together. We'd see the Adlet slide. And then we started to see kind of gaps in communication and time. And I think about 6 months went by before we ended up seeing Jerry on the Complex Sneakers podcast, and he spoke a little bit about kind of the updates that were happening. And again, when you have this spread of time, you do have to figure out how you're going to communicate to the consumer to manage the expectations, right? As more time passed, no product came. And so as we got into 2022, there was an announcement from Adidas about a collection called Remember the Why. Y'all remember this? When you look at those images, does that look very fear of God to y'all? So you probably would be confused when the statement comes out that Jerry's not involved in that collection. Because when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's totally fear of God. But what's happening is we're starting to see our partners are heading in a different direction. There's not the alignment that initially was. And then further kind of creating more kind of confusion from a consumer is the announcement that Jerry is now purely focused on fear of God athletics. He's no longer assuming the other role. And then the big moment finally arrived, March 23rd, 2023. Again, collaboration was announced December 2020. A lot of time has passed, but the show was incredible. Jerry's an incredible visionary. He doesn't believe in doing Fashion Week. He loves to work on the time that he believes is necessary in order to deliver a proper product. I believe the show went over super well. I believe the standout was the one model, which is the basketball sneaker that we were all looking forward to. And I think the biggest expectation was everyone was waiting for that shoe to drop basically right after that show. But that's not what happened. Months went by, and I think by September, there were some ads that went up. And then there was more excitement because people thought it was finally coming, but no delivery then. And then finally, when the product did hit the marketplace, this was announcement in November 29th, 2023, went to market December 3rd. Folks had problems with the price point. And then the basketball players had problems because they didn't feel like it was performance enough. And then folks on the lifestyle side had problems because they felt like it was too simple, or they felt like they'd seen it before. But the truly biggest issue here was that it took so much time versus when it was initially announced. And so the excitement that was once there, that there is a bit of leniency there with these partnerships, it had kind of fizzled, right? But the one thing I want to share about this is that's not the only brand or collaborators that are having these issues. When we look into our marketplace today, here's a collab that's announced like every second. There's probably 10 that's been announced since I've been on this stage. And the problem with that is that a collaboration was never meant to be something that could be announced so quickly. It never was meant to be something that could be so brainless. When I got into collaborations, it's because, in my opinion, the best collaboration in the world happened between Nike and Michael Jordan. It changed the fabric of the industry. It allowed me to be here. If I never saw that, I wouldn't be here, right? But we stopped thinking about it as how can we innovate? How can we introduce something to the conversation that wasn't there before? Instead, it's really skewed towards how can we make money really quickly? How can we attach ourselves to people of influence? We don't even spend the time to think about why we're doing it in the first place. So when I think about the power of these secrets, it's not just slapping logos together. It's actually, there's a secret to this madness. Now, one of the things I also wanted to share with you all is that what I'm about to share with you, I haven't shared anywhere else. I hadn't shared it digitally. I hadn't shared it in the media. I came here first. And if you follow my track record, when I introduce something new, I usually introduce it here first at Black Footwear Forum. And I hope you know that's how much I care about you all, because I wish that I had this when I was coming up. I had to do a lot of resourcefulness and navigating to figure out what to do with my career. And I always said that once I kind of figured my shit out, I would help other people figure theirs out. So there are 6 secrets that we're going to talk about today. There's core values alignment. There's originality in design and concept. Legacy and story integration. Leadership and market innovation. Audience engagement strategy. And business performance indicators. Now, I know I said a lot about intent and care and craft and all of those things. But make no mistake, we work in a business. And so collaborations do need to have business performance indicators connected to them. They are not just for Instagram likes. So when we start about core values alignment, show of hands, who in here loves collabs? I'm just very curious. Let me see your hands. Okay, so the very simple thing here is that we can align on that. We're here to talk about collaborations, right? So if I were to have a conversation to you today about the weather, or have a conversation to you about the lanyard that you're wearing, you would probably say, Bimma, we're not here to talk about that, bro. We're here to talk about collabs. This is the most simple thing that seems to get lost when we think about the origin of collaborations. It's about a shared core value. What is the value of the collaborator? What is the value of the brand? Why are they coming together in the first place? And it can't be about money. It has to be about what problem are we solving in the marketplace. We never talk about the problem that we're solving in the marketplace anymore. But that's what we have to talk about. One of the collaborations of the past decade that has been so impactful to me, not just because of the design, but the sheer volume of how it's actually impacted the marketplace, how it impacted that collaborator, how that collaborator went on to impact the industry and then the world. I'm talking about Virgil Abloh, rest in peace. Virgil and Nike came together under the core value of innovation through deconstruction. Virgil's whole thing was about how do we unpack things, get into the details, doesn't need to be perfect, where's the art, where's the substance within it, right? And at the time, this was 2016 when I think the insiders knew that this was happening. But if you think about the marketplace, I really hope y'all are students today, because what I'm about to tell you is gonna also should alert you to what's happening in the marketplace right now. 2014, 2015, 2016, Nike changed their strategy. Anybody remember what they changed that strategy to? It was direct to consumer. They had pulled back on mom and pop. What did they just do? They pulled back on mom and pop, right? Same issue all over again. Okay. So at that time, a lot of other brands started to figure out, okay, so mom and pop is open. We're gonna go talk to mom and pop. Adidas was one of those brands that figured it out with the Yeezy strategy. And Adidas couldn't have been hotter over that period of time. There wasn't anything Adidas couldn't sell. I'm sure some of y'all had NMDs, Shell Toes, Stan Smith, Ultra Boost. Everything was working. Couldn't miss. Nike couldn't land. An even bigger issue was that Nike was soft in the street. They were soft in sneaker culture. And so they had to figure out a response to that, because Nike is a very competitive company and they weren't going to take that standing down. And they went to Kanye's right-hand man. Again, a lot of folks knew that, but they didn't know that. A lot of us didn't know that in the marketplace, and that person happened to be Virgil Abloh. And they joined on this mission where it was about mixing some of these old innovations with some of this new thinking. And that's how we really got to the 10, right? It wasn't necessarily that the 10 and the models were brand new, but the interpretations were done in a way that we hadn't seen before. And then the communication and then the impact that Virgil would go on after that. And so the thing that I want to share with you today is that core values, they really are about keeping us on track and not going off course. Because if we align on something, that's what we have to see through. But the other thing with core values is that we don't have to stay there, right? They're going to evolve. They should change as the marketplace changes. Because what you agreed upon, I don't know, 2 years ago, may not be the same issues that are in the marketplace today, right? Question for the audience. Core values, is there a partnership or collaboration in the marketplace today where you can clearly see what the core value is? And then also, what is that core value? Show of hands. Anybody want to answer? Can I get a mic? We're going to come down here to Malcolm, and then you have one as well? Okay. All right. Malcolm, be quick. Quick.
Peace, peace, peace. I'm Malcolm Randall from Washington, D.C. Love what Anta and Kyrie are doing. You know I do.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah. I think that's a big alignment. And one of the core values I see is kind of bringing the artistry of his game, and as well as the cultural impact that he has and the cultures he's connected to, both on court and off the court.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It comes through super clear. We're going to pass it. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thanks. What's going on? I'm Michael Truesdale from North Carolina. Happy to be here. But I think one super impactful collab is what you have on right now, the Amamanier Nike, a little basic, but I don't know, it's a brand with a mission and a purpose, and, you know, the messaging, and it, you know, executes on the commerce and community element of things, and it shows in the products.
Absolutely. I find that when the core value is super clear, I feel like it's very easy for us to see what it is. When it's not, it's very messy, and it's very clear why it doesn't end up turning out to be successful. Thank you both for sharing. Next, we're going to talk about originality in design and concept. You can shout this from where you are. I'm very curious to know if you remember and what you felt when you saw this, but I'm curious to know, when you first saw this sneaker, what did you think when you first saw the 750 by Adidas and Yeezy? You said uncomfortable? I'm not gonna lie, the first version was uncomfortable. What else? Money? And you said unique. That's what I thought. When I saw these, and this was 2015, we didn't have anything like this in the marketplace, y'all. There was nothing that looks like this in the marketplace. And that is the point of a collab. I don't care if it's as small as what you change on a logo, but it has to be different than what's already in the marketplace. Otherwise, why does this need to exist in the first place? The thing that I thought was so fascinating about this collaboration was that it was the first time that we had seen a non-athlete partnership introducing new models in this way. Yes, there was G-Unit. Yes, there was S-Dots. No shots. I love them both. But this is very different, okay? We're talking about new innovation, new models, multiple models, and everyone in here knows how hard it is to get a new sneaker to land. It is the hardest thing to do in the industry, because designing a sneaker requires so much work. I think every collaborator that comes into a brand and thinks, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it, is like, no, it's really hard to make a sneaker. It deserves a lot of respect. The designers that really do this deserve respect, and they never really get that much shine, but that's a topic for another moment. But again, remember I told y'all about the marketplace that was happening with Nike and the situation, and the frustration around Air Maxes and Air Forces and et cetera. I think some of that frustration exists currently. It's repeating itself. But at that time, Adidas had someone that said, hey, I'm very interested in creating totally new product, and that person happened to have a lot of trust in the marketplace. A very different person than perhaps right now. Virgil Abloh is quoted as saying that real innovation only needs about a 3% difference. That's Virgil's take, right? Like I said, these are some of our truths. That don't mean that they're fact, but I love kind of what he said about it because it resonated with me. And I think when you see new product, it's either, if you go too far, you're gonna lose people on the journey. If you don't go far enough, you might look like a copycat. The Yeezy 350 is inspired by the Roshi run. Kanye saw the Roshi run. He actually thought the 750 was gonna be the better sneaker. The marketplace decided otherwise. That's why all the first things you saw a lot of 750s. And then you saw that strategy change very quickly. And why it changed was because the market responded much better to the 350. 750s are hard, don't get me wrong, but the 350s was the one that was commercially acceptable. What was interesting about it was they saw the Roshi, he saw the Roshi, but he knew he couldn't just come out with that. And so he and the design team came up with this vision, which will become the 350, right? It features boost. It has this unique wrapping around the midsole. It's got prime knit upper and a single stitch straight down. It's so simple, yet it's so iconic at the same time. This particular design will become one of the most popular sneakers of that period. So millions of 350s. So when I think about originality in design and concept, it's really about that pocket of pushing boundaries, but also how can you stay familiar to the consumer? And this is one of those things where you get into these arguments about art and science and what's enough and what's not enough. And I get into these debates all day on Instagram. Y'all probably see them. But it is one of those things where it is subjective, right? We're all gonna feel very different about this. But when it comes to the commercial aspect, what's not subjective is sell-through. Question for y'all, I want some mics. When you think about the last decade, what to you has been the collaboration that stands out? When we think about maybe these, right? Would you say that the 350 is perhaps one of the most impactful sneakers in the marketplace over the last 10 years? I'm curious to know thoughts, and I'm curious to know, if not, what's another one? Can I get some hands? Can I get a hand? I'm gonna come down here, and I'm gonna come here.
What's up, everybody? My name's Tuck. Specifically, New Balance and Joe Fresh Goods in Chicago. Literally, probably very iconic because now even today, you see now Chicago. Even though it's always going to be the town of Jordan, New Balance is slowly but surely taking over the city of Chicago. So yeah, definitely Joe. I
mean, what Joe and New Balance are doing is remarkable. Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, so if we're talking about the last decade.
I just saw this hoodie.
If we talking about the last decade, I definitely agree that the 350 changed a lot of what was going on. Also, the foam runner, if we take a look at that, it created a whole new market. I mean, I guess it was inspired by Crocs, but it popularized that foam shoe movement. Mm-hmm. So I'll say Yeezy definitely brought a lot of inspiration to the sneaker market in this past 10 years.
Yeah, we would always say Kanye was very good at spotting things before they would pop, and he would figure out how to get to market faster than they pop. I'll let you do with that what you will. Leadership and story integration. That should have been legacy, I believe. Malcolm, how do you know what's a dead giveaway of a collab that's inauthentic? You don't feel it? What else? It's lackluster. When it's sitting on the shelf. I think one of the dead giveaways, of a collaboration that is inauthentic is when the partnership, when you see the partnership and the story just doesn't quite align. And so what I mean about that is, this, for example, is the new Anta Kyrie shoe surgeon. Now, what's interesting about this is that the whole proposition against this partnership is elevating indigenous design. Last time I checked, shoe surgeon ain't indigenous. And we can laugh about that. We should laugh about these things because we have to contextualize them. I don't have a problem with Anta and Kyrie and the shoe surgeon working together. But if we're gonna do this to elevate indigenous, well, go get an indigenous designer. It's simple. I love my Under Armour people. I love y'all. I love y'all. It's love. It's love. I told y'all we was gonna get spicy today. When we're doing collaborations, I think the Achilles heel when it comes to collaborations is asking the question, is this cool? Is this trendy? A collaboration can't start with either of those things. We already talked about where it has to start. When I saw the announcement of Balenciaga and Under Armour, I didn't see it. Somebody texted me. And I was like, no, because I doubt that's a real thing. I don't need to look to go see that. And I looked, and I was like, oh no. I was like, what are they doing? The reason I say that is because when you hear it, it doesn't make sense. And there are circumstances where we hear two things that come together that don't make sense, and it makes something beautiful. This is not one of those instances. And it's no shade at anyone who designed this. This is an issue with the brief. The brief is incorrect. It does not solve a problem in the marketplace. Under Armour has built an incredible legacy and brand in sport. It's undeniable. What is done in Maryland, Baltimore area is undeniable. Balenciaga is currently known in the marketplace as a fashion brand that does not have moral. Why would you pull those two things together? It doesn't make sense. When we think about storytelling, integration, folks may feel multiple ways about Ronnie, but you make no mistake about it. Every project got a story about it. Every single project has a story. One of the things that I noticed when he began the project on ASICS was he led with a story about his connection with his mom. And at the time, Reebok pumps, if y'all remember Reebok's day, pumps was everywhere. My pops had pumps. I wanted pumps. Ronnie's mom, she was like, I'm not getting you pumps. She decided she was going to get him ASICS Gel Light 3s. And at that time, he admitted that he didn't like them. He didn't like them. But he would start to appreciate them as he got older because it reminded him of his relationship with his mother, right? And so that became basically the foundation of how he would approach his partnership with ASICS. And the thing that stuck out to me was that I don't know that family dynamic, but I know my own family dynamic. And I know I grew up in a single parent home on a limited income. And I know my mom was like, yeah, bro, you're not getting all them sneakers. She kept it a buck with me. She got me what I needed for school. And everything else, she was like, yeah, you're gonna have to wait. And so the reason why I share this story is because I feel like other people can relate to that in the marketplace. You can relate to wanting something and not being able to get it until you were much older, right? And that has been the hold that has started to come with this particular partnership, right? I can't, y'all. I saw it and I was like, this is wild. This is a wild week. But again, when it comes to that integration on the legacy and the storytelling part, that is the part where it translates to being authentic to the marketplace, right? If we don't have a point of authenticity, we can't manufacture it on the back end. The audience isn't dumb. Kendrick already said it. Shape the narrative how you want. People can see through it, right? A question for you all today is, when we think about ASICs, ASICs may be hotter than it's ever been right now. I'm curious to know, do you think that that could be different than outside of the collaboration that they've done with Ronnie? And do you think that how they are performing today is more so a relation to where the marketplace is and wanting different product? Show of hands for anyone who wants to jump in on this. I'm gonna bring a mic down here. I got you working today, I'm sorry.
Hey, Mark from Toronto. For me, I'm a big ASICS fan, specifically around their Kiko collabs and Auto, which is a sub-brand of Kiko. And I feel like their integration into that, like, more futuristic side of design has made them, like, really explode, especially in, like, certain lanes of fashion. But I think this is also, like, just widened that. So I feel like they would be and are still relevant, but it's just, like, I feel like they're really good right now at placing themselves in different spaces and, like you said, being authentic in all of those.
Yeah, I think they're doing a really good job of placing themselves in multiple global marketplaces, right? Like when we look at the global marketplace, if y'all are paying close attention, ASICS is doing a lot of really great and interesting projects, including that latest commercial they just put out. Okay, so let's talk about leadership in market innovation. Anyone ever seen Beyonce perform live? So then you know she's the greatest living entertainer ever, okay? I'm sorry, this is not a debate. I said alive. I said alive. Living and alive. Living and alive. I heard you. I heard you. So, because of what she's been able to do in music and performance, Beyonce has an incredibly strong following, the Beehive, as I was just reminded of, so that I don't get attacked online. And because of that, a lot of brands want to work with Beyonce, right? There's this idea that if we work with Beyonce, it's going to translate to commercial success, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a thing that in particular is different about Beyonce's brand than perhaps another example that I'm going to share. And while Beyonce has extreme influence in the music space, it hasn't quite translated over into lifestyle and fashion. And one of the issues there is accessibility. And do other folks feel like it is achievable for them? We see Beyonce and we see these things, but I don't think I could ever perform like Beyonce performs on that stage. Never. And when I see her in fashion, I think her clothing is incredible, but it's not always something that I think I want to put on. And so therein lies an issue when it comes to doing a collaboration with a sportswear brand to go into fashion. Now, Rihanna, on the other hand, has figured out how to not only be influential in music, but she's figured out how to take her style and deliver it in a way where folks want to wear and style and dress in similar or different ways to Rihanna. And we saw that in 2015 with the Creeper. And there was a model that they released before. There was like a trainer that released before. I don't know if y'all remember that. The trainer didn't perform as well, but the Creeper performed extremely well. And what you notice about it, as we talked before, slightly different but familiar. But it also felt very much Rihanna, right? And what it did for Puma in the marketplace was remarkable. More people talking about Puma at that time than they had before. And Puma had already a lot of great stuff going on at that time. But it's the power of these partners like Rihanna. And when we talk about kind of these two entities coming together, the other thing that I really want to iterate is that we both got to have something to bring to the table, y'all. We all been in relationships where you brought something, the other person may not have brought something. You went to Thanksgiving, they didn't show up to the potluck with food. Y'all know how that goes down. But that's what it means when these collaborations. You can't have someone coming in with influence and thinking you're gonna ride their coattails, or have someone coming in with technology and you're gonna ride the coattails. Both partners have to figure out what they're bringing to the table. When we look at recent collaborations, again, in the marketplace, who do y'all stands out that you felt like both partners truly brought something unique and new to the table? I'm gonna go over here. And then I'll go here.
Hey, how you doing? Sorry. We're from North Carolina. I think one collab that stood out to me was Zellerfeld and Montclair. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they do a lot of 3D printing. And also, I know they did some stuff with Heron, but I thought that was the way they took Montclair's brand DNA and then innovated from a 3D perspective was really interesting. I don't know how the shoe performed, but I was definitely paying attention. And
I think Zellerfeld in itself is doing some really incredible work. There was a lot of people comparing A$AP Rocky's latest project to some of their work. But it was really good. We're gonna go here next. Time's creeping up on me, so we gotta.
What's going on? I'm Martel. One that's really stood out to me actually was another Aces collab with Stephon Diggs. Yeah, to me.
Shout out to Frank Cook.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's someone that's known for being fly, and I think that also adds like flair to the collab. Kind of similar with Rihanna, like she's known for that, and like you said, what she brought, something that she brought to the table, and just kind of with Diggs with the new Asics Gel Nimbus 10.1. You know, he kind of brought his own kind of innovations to it and kind of met them where they were at, and they both kind of just aligned, I would say. And that's why I feel like it just like really stood out.
Dope. I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, I gotta move on for the sake of time. I wanna make sure I get through these last 2 points. This next one is audience engagement strategy. I cannot express how important this part is. Just curious, what do y'all feel like are some of the most popular ways to promote a new sneaker collab? What do you see? What typically happens? Shout. Social media, what else? Okay, what else? Activations? Okay. So I saw this. It might be familiar. This was earlier this year, and I was on Instagram. I was in my feelings because everybody was in Paris, and I decided not to go. And I was like, I'm not gonna go. And like, of course, all my friends are there. And I see this photo of James, and I'm like, what's on James' feet? And it was a photo of these forests that are recently hitting the marketplace. And within minutes, it was on every single sneaker blog. Every creator was talking about it. People were texting me about it. And it reminded me of how we bring sneakers to the marketplace is extremely important. The other thing to remember about what happened there, or maybe to contextualize it, was who James was around when he was doing that. He was around other young black creatives because the story that would eventually be told was about young black creatives. We didn't quite know that in the moment, but that's essentially what that teaser was doing at that point in time. And so when we think about audience engagement strategy, it is much more than us creating the sneaker collab. We have to think about how we're going to communicate that collaboration. We have to think about the copy that's going to go into that, the photos, the creative direction, the film, the activation, the seating. The list can go on and on, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be all of those things. It could be one that's just really, 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 really good. And when I think of someone who I think does this very, very well, is this guy from Chicago, Joe Fresh Goods. Now, one of his collaborations that I love to death is what he decided to do in reinterpreting Belly. Now, Belly in honoring Hype Williams. Now, Hype Williams, as we know, has been a remarkable figure in hip-hop culture, some of the best videos that we've ever seen. I think so many of us also learned about cinematography and direction from watching those videos. And I think also we learned a lot about styling because June did the styling in those videos, right? And so what was so remarkable about this was he knows his audience, right? He knows his audience grew up in a certain time period. He knows his audience is very black. He knows that we care about these types of stories the same way homie pointed out earlier about why he loves the Amam and Yair partnership with Jordan Brand, because James and Joe know their audience. And so one of the greatest strengths that I think about when it comes to Joe is how he brings those stories to life, not only in the product, but also how he uses these visuals. He ended up also connecting. So the other thing about this, right, collaboration is truly beyond one person. It is a team effort. And one thing that Joe always does is he brings people along on that journey. And one of the directors that he brought along to capture this is Joshua Kissy, right? And Joshua Kissy has this amazing aesthetic and viewpoint when it comes to bringing stories to life. And I thought it was remarkable that they got to work together. Let's circle back on this, but it's something to think about. What's your favorite audience engagement strategy? I'd love to know later on. We can talk about that at lunch. If you've seen some things, from the past year that you're like, I actually really liked how they did that. Or like, I love when Donald Glover airdropped his shoes at Coachella in 2019. Like, things like that are always super interesting to me. Now, the last piece, we can't get to business performance if we don't take care of the other 5, okay? So if we're starting thinking about what we're gonna sell, we're probably already in the wrong place. Do y'all remember what happened on January 3rd, 2024, this year? Anybody? Anybody remember what happened? I'll give you a hint. Had a lot to do with cognac. So the business performance metric that I want you to understand and pay attention to here is that this is the most viewed interview in YouTube history. And it didn't target Gen Z. For every marketer insider that keeps telling everybody to target Gen Z. No shade at Gen Z, I love y'all, sometimes. But the thing to call out here is that the reason why this was able to take place is because we actually had, I know the other part of this is like, yes, it was entertaining. Yes, it was all of these things. It was unfiltered. But it was also something we hadn't heard before, and the marketplace was looking for honesty. The marketplace was looking for transparent communication, and why we didn't fact check everything that Cat Williams said, we decided to believe it. And that went on to become the most viewed YouTube video. When it comes to collaborations, I think sometimes we get a little bit lost on what performance indicators we should be paying attention to in the marketplace. And some people like to say it's about views on social media and shares and how many likes a photo got. And some people like to say how it's about what the resale value is on StockX and why I think those metrics are important. The most important metric is actually sell-through. Did people buy it the first time? Right? That's how we know if it was in demand or not, or if we met demand or if we didn't meet demand, right? We can then go on to internet traffic and some of these other things, but we need to know if it sold through. The collaboration this year, when I think about business performance and the example that I wanted to use, I couldn't bypass what's happening with the Adidas AE1. I could also not bypass the fact that we've seen multiple attempts in the performance basketball space to try to accomplish this, and no one was betting on this particular sneaker. Not a single industry insider was betting on this sneaker. And what's so fascinating about this is this sneaker is priced at $125. $125, right? And at the time, do y'all remember how it was announced? Ant was literally opening a bag of competitor sneakers and calling them trash and saying how his is better. And then slowly but surely, we started to pick our heads up and we were like, oh, he's right. But what's interesting about this, it became the fastest growing signature sneaker for the brand at Foot Locker. And it also is going to surpass the Damian Lillard line as well as the James Harden line. And every single drop sells out immediately. And so I just want to continue to harp on the fact that that business performance indicator here is about sell-through. And I don't care if sometimes sell-through is 20% or sell-through is 100%. But sell-through is going to be way more meaningful to anyone than what happened after the fact. We'll bypass that for now. So just to recap, circle back, I know I got to get y'all out of here so y'all can go have lunch. But these are the 6 secrets. I would love to continue to have this conversation, shape this conversation, continue to work through these things. But again, this is just the lens that I see this through. The other thing, and the reason why I share this with you all, is not just because some of you might go buy sneakers, but some of you are entrepreneurs, some of you are creative, some of you are going to be future marketers in this place. I think it's important for you to understand this information, continue to shape this information, and use it how you see fit to take our industry to the next place. So thank y'all so much for the time. Thank y'all for pulling up. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Appreciate y'all, boys.